Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Well, today we are going to to deal with an important part in the passive lesson, which is how to transform active questions into passive ones. And we'll start with yes or no question, of course. As you can see, you got was John painting the doors. So there are two ways to do it. Of course, the first way here, which is on the table, So the first way, which is here in the table, so you are going to, for either you turn the sentence into an affirmative sentence, which is John was painting the door. Then number two, you turn the sentence into the passive. And then number three, you turn the passive into a yes or no question, of course. Or you can use the second way here, of course. Now, in our question here, we've got John is the subject, V painting is the verb, and the doctors here is the object, of course. And you know that my verb here was painting, of course. Just put V here for you as painting to be the verb to make things clear for you. The whole verb here is was painting, and since we are asking a question and it is a compound tense, then we are starting with the auxiliary. Then John subject, V verb, painting, and you've got the object here. So number one, you are going to bring your object here and put it as subject here. This is one. Number two here was and past participle two. So you start with number two here. So since we are asking a question here, we start with an auxiliary. Now, doors here is a plural and it is in the past. Have a look at this rule here. You should know this, of course. So we are starting with this auxiliary here. And then use the past participle as it is in the passive rule, being painted, and you finish your question with the agent if you mention it, of course. That's very easy. So you've got your object here becomes the subject. Then you put your auxiliary, of course, past participle, and then you finish your question. If you have a WH question like this one here, how can they help the boy? How can they help the boy? How can they help the boy? So number one, in this case, you are going to repeat your interrogative pronoun, the question word. This is number one. Number two, you bring your object here and you put it as subject. This is number two. Number three, you are going to deal with the auxiliary here and the past participle. So since we've got a model here, it doesn't change. So we are going to put can here as an auxiliary. And then we apply the rule here of the passive model plus to be plus the past participle. So you've got be helped. And then you finish your question, of course, by mentioning the agent if you want. I would like just to draw your attention here. So here it is a personal pronoun subject, and you should be very careful. And here it becomes a personal pronoun object. In example number two, who built this house? We are asking a question about the subject here. So number one, you are going to repeat your question word, number one. Number two, you are going to bring your object here and put it as subject. And then so now you are going to add the auxiliary here. So in which tense is the verb here? So it is the simple past. Then you are going to use the auxiliary here of the passive in the simple past. And since this house is singular, then we say was, past participle, and then you end with by because you are asking a question here. Or if this is difficult for you, you say you can. So you can use this the second one here. So you put the sentence. You got a question here. You put it in the affirmative. So this house was built by. We don't know who. That's why we are asking. And then you turn it into a yes or no question. Was this house built by? And then all you have to do is just add who here. Since you are asking a question about the subject, so a person, of course, so you say who. And we obtain our question, which is, who was this house built by? And some people can say, sometimes they use this one here too, by whom was this house built? By whom was this house built? And this is to formal, of course. So most of the time we use this one here. I'm going to add the two more examples, of course, concerning the simple present and the simple past, because the students sometimes make mistakes when dealing with these tenses. So we go with the simple present here. So we've got, does he eat cakes? Does he eat cakes? So he is subject, verb eat, and object cakes here. So you bring your object here and becomes subject cakes. And number two here, which is the auxiliary and the verb here. So in this case here, you cannot use to do in the passive. You should be very careful here. Why? Because here it is an active question, sorry, and we've got a verb in the sentence. So that's why we use to do. In the passive, we deal with the auxiliary to be. So you should be very careful. So cakes plural, then we say are, past participle of your verb eaten, and then your agent, of course. So we say, are cakes eaten by him? If you've got a WH, of course, as it is shown in this example here, so you've got, why do they hate Muslims? Why do they hate Muslims? So number one, you are going to repeat your question word. Two, you are going to bring your object and put it as subject here. And then number two here, you are going to use the auxiliary to be, not to do, because we are dealing here with the passive here. So Muslims is plural, of course, so we say are, past participle of your verb, and then your agent if you mention it, of course. Then we say, why are Muslims hated by them? And it is the same thing for the passive, simple past, sorry, past simple past too. Did he clean the garden yesterday? So did he clean the garden yesterday? Subject, clean verb, the garden, it is the object, of course, and I added yesterday here as the rest of the sentence in case you've got a longer sentence. So number one, you bring your object as subject, this is number one. And number two here, auxiliary with the past participle. And since you cannot, so you cannot use the auxiliary here to do in the past. So you use the auxiliary to be in the past since we are dealing with the passive. Then the garden is singular, so we use was according to the rule, this one here. So forget about this one here now. So you are going to use this rule here. So we say was the garden plus past participle, rest of the sentence, and your agent. And your passive question here is, was the garden cleaned yesterday by him? If you have a WH, of course, like this one here, so we say, why did she break the fowl? Why did she break the fowl? Now, number one, you are going to repeat your question word. Number two, you are going to bring your object and put it as subject. Number three here, you are going to use the auxiliary here according to the rule of the passive. You should be very careful. We don't use did. Then you've got the past participle of your verb, and then you finish by your agent, of course. And once again, you should be very careful. So she here becomes her. So this is personal pronoun subject. It becomes a personal pronoun object here. And there are other examples, of course. I'll show you two or more, of course. You've got the, this is how we transform an active question, of course, in the future simple. And this is WH. And this is an example concerning the present perfect. And this is present continuous and yes or no question, of course.